Okay, so hi
Yes.
everyone. My name is Vibha Kagzi, and I'm the founder of ReachIV.com. At ReachIV, we help people reach their career aspirations and their study abroad goals. We started this series called House of Experts because we wanted to bring in experts, much like Sonia, to the show so that people like you could get exposed to a variety of careers. We feel like so many careers have just exploded, and people just need to hear from the experts and really get an insight of what their lives look like. So, first of all, Sonia, thank you so much for doing this. It's really a
Thank
pleasure to
you.
have you
Thank
on
you
the
for
show.
inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, thank you so much. So, guys, feel free to throw in questions. Sonia and I have spoken, and we've curated a bunch of things we want to get across to you. So, I'm going to start with first introducing Sonia. As most of you know, Sonia is one of the most well-known faces on television for anyone following the financial markets. She hosts several shows on CNBC TV-18. The Bazaar Morning Call is hosted by her. The NSE Closing Bell is hosted by her. So literally from start to finish, Sonia is on the job. She's also been awarded several awards like the Young Professional Awards and Young Women Achievers Award by the Rotary. She's also got over 170,000 followers on Twitter, making her one of the leading voices on Twitter and on social media in general. So, Sonia, this has been a remarkable journey, and I actually first got to know you at the start of your journey. So, I'm actually very curious to learn about you and what's transpired in your life in the past decade. So, let's start with the basics. And since we run an education company, my first question to you is about your education, a little bit about your childhood. Where did you go to college, and where did this interest in the financial markets even stem from?
So I actually did my BMS from Narsi Monji. And I always knew from the very beginning that I wanted to become a journalist. So it was a very calculated move towards journalism. There was never any, doubt in my mind that, I always knew I wanted to become a journalist. And it started by, even when I was doing my BMS, I was writing for Education Times, which is a collaboration with the Times of India. At that time, I don't know if the paper still exists, but I used to write for the Education Times at that time. And then I sort of, applied to Reuters, and I got an offer from Reuters. And then from there on, the journey was built. But from very early in my, in my young adult life, I knew that I wanted to become a journalist.
Okay. So you knew you had this interest in journalism, but you still studied BMS. So,
Yes.
so why did you study business as opposed to studying language or journalism or media studies or something?
So I knew that I always wanted to do finance journalism. I always wanted to do something with regards to, business journalism. And I knew if I get a basic degree in journalism, that may not cut it for me, because business journalism, requires a lot of specialized knowledge, like how to read balance sheets and how to read profit and loss accounts and how to sort of do data crunching and all of that. And you wouldn't learn all of that in basic, journalism schools. Of course, journalism school is great for people who want to do regular, journalism,
Sure.
like reporting, etc. But for business journalism, it was okay. Someone's saying my video is a bit hazy, so let me just try.
Yeah, much better now.
I hope it's not better now. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So so then that's why I did business bachelor in management studies, because I knew that could help me sort of get to my eventual goal, which was to become a journalist.
Okay, makes sense. So you knew you wanted to study business journalism, so you got the nitty-gritties of business out by studying it. Okay, terrific. Let's jump right into, what is the day in the life of Sonia Shenoy look like? When do you start your day, and how does it sort of pan out for you?
Okay, so it's a very crazy day, and I was discussing this with you earlier, right? I start my day at all business journalists start their day at like 5:36 in the morning, and where we get up and we curate all the news, overnight news, then morning cues, because the market starts at 9 o'clock. So before that, we have two shows before that. So we have to sort of put out all the information, and then we go, and then there's anchoring. So people only see the front end, right? They look at you on TV, they look at you with makeup, and they're like, oh, it's such a glamorous job. But there's so much research behind it that it's it's a lot. And then of course I anchor shows, and then I also take care of a team. I have a team of researchers who sort of look at various sectors. So by the time I end my day, it's about maybe 4, 5, 6 in the evening. So it's like a 12-hour day. But there are
Wow.
fixed timings because the market also opens at 9 and shuts at 3. So you know that there are fixed timings in business journalism.
Okay, so it's a tough day. It's like an investment banking job. It's like a 12-hour stint. Wow. Okay, and how much of the research are you doing yourself as opposed to having, someone actually present the news to you and then you read it? Like where do you sort of draw the balance between anchoring and...
So I track a few sectors. So I track the auto sector, I track the aviation sector, I look at the real estate sector, I interact with a lot of corporates every single day. So because of that, these sectors are the ones that I basically track, but the rest of my team does other sectors and they provide research to me and to other anchors. So it's like we work in a, as a cohesive unit, and whatever research we do, we put on the table so that it benefits other anchors as well.
Okay, so Karthik Dattani is asking, like, do you do some of the analysis yourself as well?
Yes, a lot of it. In fact, in autos, in aviation, in real estate, I track a lot of these companies like threadbare and do a lot of the analysis myself. Yeah.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay. So when you get in all the research and you compile it, how much of the news that you sort of relay on television is opinion versus what the channel sort of dictates? How much of it is based on your analysis of your team, and how much of it is like the channel? Like, where do you draw that line? Between the channel taking a statement,
The channel really never. So what happens with business news, Vibha, is that it's very, very data driven. It's not like political news where there is a bias or where there is an opinion. With business news, it's hard facts, hard numbers. So there's really not much opinion that you can, put on board. I mean, if a company has reported a revenue growth of 12%, it's a revenue growth of 12%. You can't really spin the story around any other way, right? So so it doesn't. There's not much and in fact we never get told by the company that, oh, you need to speak like this, you need to say this. No, it's just hard facts that are put on the table, and that's why I picked business journalism, because it is it's not peddling fake news. It's just putting out data and research.
Okay, so it really is just sort of presenting the facts as they are. You don't see this as sort of like there's no cosmetic change made to data.
No, not at all. In fact,
not at all.
everything, no, not at all. In fact, everything is, and we have a lot of genuine sources, right? There's a Bombay Stock Exchange website. There's a National Stock Exchange website. There are company annual reports. So all the data is picked from these genuine verified sources. Like there's no rumor. Of course, people put out source-based information on like mergers and acquisitions and all of that. But largely the data is very much from these verified sources.
Okay. Take a question from Chandak Ramavtar, who says, Sonia ma'am, do financial fundamentals of companies matter more than technicals? Are you more a technicals person or a fundamentals person?
No, I'm a fundamental person. So I believe that the basis of every bull market rally is fundamental growth. And that's why what I do is I encourage people to do their own research and to kind of, look at data points based on what the company does. How much is the growth? Do they have any balance sheet issues? Do they have any corporate governance issues? Are the promoters strong enough? And only then invest in that company. Like I'm not a technical analyst. I don't know much about technical derivatives and F&O and all of that. Of course, people do it as well, but I believe a lot in fundamentals.
Okay, so you're like a Warren Buffett believer. Just trust the fundamentals and believe what the hard facts say. Okay. Another question from Gautam here. What advice would you give to new traders like me? Any advice for traders?
Yes. In fact, I wanted to say that if you have to first decide what are you? Are you a fund? Are you an investor, a long-term investor, or are you a trader? You can't be both. So if you say I'm buying a stock, say a Maruti stock, and then you say, oh, after 10 days, now I don't have patience to be a long-term investor. Now let me trade in the stock. You're definitely going to make losses,
Sure.
So you decide that if you're an investor, stick with it for 2 years or 3 years, whatever's your time horizon. And if you're a trader, well, as they say, 90% traders don't make money in the market. So it just gives you a lot of blood pressure and no money. So, my advice is that largely if you can stick to sort of investing for the longer term, it'll help you, create a lot more wealth in the long term.
So very, very Warren Buffett-y in your outlook, huh? Fundamentals, long term, and also know yourself and your sort of time horizon, and why are you why are you in this trade to start with?
Yeah.
Okay. Question from Kamlesh Pralatka. He says, could you guide us how to go about journalism courses? Anything there on journalism?
Yes, and so that's a very good question, because there are a lot of schools that specialize in journalism courses. Now, there is Asian College of Journalism, ACJ, in Chennai, which CNBC TV-18 actually hires a lot from ACJ. So if you're serious about journalism, and journalism is a tough job, Vibha. I mean, as I told you, it's a 12-hour job for people who are reporting from the studio. But people who are reporting on ground, on the field, it's like a 24-hour job for them. They're called at all odd hours. They report. Now, with coronavirus coverage, people are called. Their health is on the line. They're endangering their families, but they're still going out there and doing what they're doing. So my only advice is that if you're serious, then go for one of these colleges where companies hire from. So ACJ is a popular college that a lot of channels hire from. You can look at that. And then business journalism, I mean, you can do a basic BMS course or a MBA course, and it'll help you sort of move in your management career.
Okay. We also see a lot of people who want to enter your field, do an undergraduate degree in journalism, and then they or writing, and then they top it up with an MBA. So they get sort of, the best of both worlds.
So I want to just mention that I haven't done my MBA. So I'm not a postgraduate. I'm purely a graduate, because what happened with me is, after doing my BMS, before I could do my MBA, I took my GMAT and everything. Before I could do my MBA, I got a good job with Reuters. So I decided that, let me just ride it. Let me get a few years of work experience, and then I'll do my MBA. And then I got the job of my dreams, which was CNBC. And once I got that, then I decided, what? Eventually, after an MBA, I want to do this.
Right.
So I'm
then you
put my MBA in hold. So I really never ended up doing an MBA.
Okay, yeah. So different paths, different journeys.
Yeah.
Let's take this question from Mayur. He says, how do you deal with hate? So just to sort of soften that question, just how do you deal with sort of negative criticism when you're like a public figure and, you're out there and you're sprouting out these opinions? How do you react when someone sends in something negative?
Oh, well, you just send back love, I guess.
Yeah.
You just send back a lot of love. Yeah. I mean, what do you do, right? People say all sorts of nasty things. People say kind things as well. So I guess there are perils and there are pleasures of being in this profession. If you're popular, if you're a face on TV, you got to deal with the criticism as well as you deal with all the bouquets, I guess.
I see. Okay. And obviously, it's not as glamorous as it seems, because from the outside, it looks like you are this public figure, you have this following. But thanks for putting out the reality that it's just, 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. job.
Yeah.
And you're working really hard out there. I mean,
I know it is a stressful job, because what happens with business news is that you get a lot of you have to track daily rates, right? So the rates are live, they are coming to you live. And B, you have to track breaking news, like the releases come to you as well. So you have to analyze it on the spot. So it is a really stressful job. Of course, I've been doing it for a while, so it's kind of become second skin for me. But otherwise, I think, it's not as glamorous as it looks.
Yeah, of course. Okay, question come up from Guntas 8, who says, do you personally invest in stocks?
Yes, I do. So what we're allowed to do is, we are allowed to invest in mutual funds for the long term. We're not allowed to trade, because it's kind of a conflict of interest. So I don't trade at all, because I don't like to trade, and I get an overload of information. So it becomes really hard for me to sift through all of that and along with my job. So I invest in mutual funds. I know some of the fund managers who are handling my money. So I just purely invest in mutual funds.
Okay, so Lingesh Waran had this question about, do you trade daily? Being the first-hand place of news sources means a lot of profitable trades. So I'm guessing the answer is no.
No.
Does the channel have a line that they do on what's allowed and what's not?
No, it's just a blanket, not allowed to trade.
Not allowed.
Yeah, you're not allowed to trade, because it's conflict of interest, right? I mean, then what happens is you get a lot of this information, actionable information, and then if you use it, then you'll constantly be looking out for that. So it's just, if you want to be a credible journalist, then you got to sort of stick by the rules. So yeah, I just prefer to not trade at all. And it takes a lifetime to build a career, but it takes a second for that career to, get destroyed. Your credibility to get destroyed, and you don't want that.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, the ethics of it is just wrong, right? You are getting information a fraction of a second before you sort of relay it to the rest of us.
Yes. Yeah.
There of course is a fine gray line right there. Question from Malika Dutt. Did you ever consider doing a CA or a CFA? I know so you said you thought of the MBA. The CA or CFA ever came up?
I wish I could have done. Actually, now I feel in hindsight, I should have maybe pursued a CA or CFA. It would have helped me a lot in my career. But at that time, I was riding this whole wave of, working and learning stuff on the job. I had no journalistic background before joining CNBC. So I had to really learn a lot on the job. Mm-hmm. And that took up a lot of my time. So I didn't really pursue, but I wish I had, yeah.
You wish you had some sort of extra credentialing, huh?
I know, yeah. It always helps, right? And we do the same work that CAs do. So we analyze balance sheets and P&Ls every day, day in and day out. So that skill would have, I guess, helped. But I learned on the job.
Sure, of course. Okay. Take a question from Avi Shah about the current situation. So do you think the markets are currently overvalued? This is an opinion-based question.
No, so what I feel is that now there are... So, the thing with the market right now is that no one knows which way the COVID situation is going to head. As we know, Bombay is getting worse by the day. Across the world, there are places where there's a second wave coming. So the economic damage is very hard to gauge right now. Companies are going to really default on their loans, and people are going to not be able to pay money back. There are salary cuts, there are job losses. You can't quantify all of that now. And no living person right now has ever been through this before. The last time this happened was 100 years ago. So no one really knows. So that's why I feel that the markets are a bit uncertain. And could be overvalued as well, but uncertain definitely. So, maybe you could see a lot of volatility until we get clarity until a vaccine comes out for sure.
Yeah, well, vaccine, I mean, we don't have a vaccine for HIV AIDS, which, happened so many years ago. So vaccine for this, like, we really don't know. It seems like super uncertain, and there's no timelines on this one. Question on post-COVID. So, what do you think of the question from Abel Gonzalez? How would you project the stock market in the post-COVID world? I don't know if you've been asked this before, but
I have been asked. Actually, the thing is that like I said, right? I mean, no one knows when the post-COVID world is going to come through. What the post-COVID world, is there a post-COVID world, first of all, right? So it's very hard to predict. But I can just say one thing, that if you're in it for the very long term, this market is definitely going to recover. Because once the COVID situation is under control, then the pent-up demand is going to be massive. Like, I know people who are waiting for the day when they can order a pizza or go out to a restaurant, or, people who have never consumed biscuits and ice creams in their life are hoarding up on that because of this frustration of sitting indoors, and sitting indoors for over 2 months can really have repercussions on your mental and physical health. So I feel there'll be a lot of pent-up demand, and the markets will definitely move up. It's just a question of when, and that no one has an answer to.
Okay. Thank you for not professing to have an answer, because I've been seeing so many webinars where people have answers to all these questions. So thank you for just being honest and saying, look, I don't really have an answer.
Yeah, I don't think anyone knows. I mean, if no one knew this was going to happen, right? No one knew about COVID. No one knows. WHO is literally changing their stance every day. Like, one day it's, oh, you don't need to wear a mask. Next day you have to wear a mask every single day. So if the WHO themselves don't know, who are we to know what the impact of all this would be?
Absolutely. Okay, I'll take a career-related question from Sonia, who says, what is the eligibility for a business journalist in that? What do companies look for? So when you guys are hiring, what do you look for?
Okay, so we first look for your degree. Like I said, we hire a lot from ACJ, Asian College of Journalism. We hire, so need a basic journalism degree from whichever college. I mean, if it has to be a decent college, that's all. Then if you have work experience, that is preferable. So if you've like worked in if you want to be a business journalist, then you can have worked in an investment bank. You could have worked at a brokerage house. You could have worked at a bank, a normal bank. You could have worked in another channel. We're happy to take people from another channel as well. So I mean, these are a couple of things we need. Also, just you need to be presentable, right? I mean, it's not about looks, but you need to be charming. There's a certain amount of charm that you need to be on air. So you don't have to be pretty or handsome or anything, but you just need to be a bit like charming, presentable, to make the boring dull. I mean, business news at the end of the day is a bit dull, right?
Yeah.
So to spice it up, you need to have that little bit of an X factor. That's all. I mean, a basic degree and some work experience.
Okay. And preferably a degree in like, you're saying journalism or
we've also hired a lot of people who have like CFAs or who are CAs or who are with brokerages.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, so you do look for people with sort of strong technical quant backgrounds as well.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll take a question from Jatin, who says, one piece of advice to a young financial advisor, since you have researchers on your team.
Okay, so my only piece of advice to financial advisors is that do a lot of your own research. I've realized, Vibha, that when I do my own research, it really equips me to kind of take any bad news, upfront. Like I thoroughly know a company. So I know when there are red flags. I don't follow anybody else's research. I do my own research on a company if I've invested in it. So if I invest in a mutual fund, I go and I read about the mutual fund. I read the companies. I read the balance sheet of the companies, the P&Ls of the companies, so that tomorrow, if something goes wrong, I'm the only person to blame. I don't blame anyone else. And right now, there are a lot of issues where you have this credit crisis that's going on.
Yeah.
This
whole
Franklin Templeton, shutting down 6 of their funds. People who are exposed to those funds don't even know what those funds have invested into.
Yeah.
So you need to keep your eyes and ears open. Don't follow anyone. Just go look at the fund. Look, are they investing into paper which is defaulting? Are they investing into real estate companies? Are they investing into PSU banks? These are all red flags. So my only thing to fund managers is do a lot of your own research.
Okay, this is really good advice, because a lot of times people will buy mutual funds. They say, okay, it's a Aditya Birla fund, it's a HDFC fund, and just because of the fund house, very few people. You're absolutely right. Very few people actually understand the underlying collateral that the fund is based off of. And I'm happy to hear that you're actually going that deep into every single aspect of all your investments. Yeah. Guys, this is really solid advice. I please take note of what she just said, and please do try to follow that. Take a question from Aruni Maru, who says, what is the career trajectory of a news anchor? Okay, this is interesting. So how do you think this career evolves, and from where you are now, what does the next sort of 10 years look like for you?
Okay, so it's very fluid. It depends on, things were so different 3 months ago, right? Forget about 10 years ago. 3 months ago, things were different. And now everything is changed, because now, as we were discussing earlier, Vibha, now everybody consumes their news on the phone. Hardly anyone watches TV. There are no papers anymore. In this post-COVID situation, half the people get their information on WhatsApp. It's all unverified information. So for a journalist, things have really changed. You can't go out on the field as much now because of, health concerns and all of that. So, I mean, forget about 10 years from now. I don't even know what 10 months from now is going to be for a journalist. But I can say one thing, that it takes a lot of time before you can get that ease in front of the camera, So it took me at least a few years before I could easily come in front of the camera and sort of voice my opinion. I guess like every other profession, it takes a lot of time.
But you've had a trajectory, like you started with just anchoring, and then you became, you had a research team, and now you have 10 people you're managing, and you're deputy editor. So So what I started is, when I started, I was only doing research.
So I started, they didn't give me an anchoring slot because of course there were other people and there were seniors. So I started by doing research. Then I used to do these small snippets. So if I was researching 10 companies, then I would put out snippets of these companies, do links on air, small sort of brackets. Then I started anchoring.
Okay.
Then what I started doing, I started planning shows. So based on my research, I would invite guests, I would interact with corporates. So I started show planning. And then I started doing these IPs, like intellectual properties. Like we have this India Business Leader Awards. So I started anchoring award shows. I started doing investor camps across the country. So where I would get people together and sort of do camps. So that was basically my trajectory. It started with pure research and then it went on to anchoring, doing panels and all of that.
Okay, wow, quite a journey, huh? From research to deputy editor. Amazing, wow. Okay, you made it happen. Wow. Someone's asking here, Sonia is asking, how did you even get into CNBC? What can you take us to the beginning?
So I was working with Reuters, and Reuters is into, they basically are like a news wire, right? So they don't have any channel of their own. And I always knew at that point that I was not so interested in print. I was interested in television. I wanted to sort of come on TV, and that was my eventual goal. So from Reuters, I had a friend who was working with CNBC TV-18 at that time. And he, when we met, he told me, he said, you know what, there's a slot, that there's an opening. Why don't you just try? Since you have the experience with Reuters and you know how the news wire works, the system works, just apply. You never know. I applied and I got in, because there was, at that point, I was lucky, like they say, you need to be at the right place at the right time. Yeah. I was lucky at that time when I got in, there was a very senior anchor who left immediately for another channel.
Okay,
so that slot suddenly became empty. So it was not more about me or my talent. It was more about being at the right place at the right time. Luck, I guess, as they say.
Okay, I'm loving the honesty in this interview, and a lot of people are also commenting on just the honesty and just how upfront you are. So let's keep that flavor going. Going to ask you a little bit about work-life balance, and we have a question here from Gina Veen 2081 who says, similar question, like how do you manage your family with your child and this sort of demanding job? So, where are you on that spectrum?
I don't know. Actually, work-life balance is very hard, to tell you honestly. But I have very, very supportive bosses and a really supportive team. In our team, actually, there are a lot of young mothers and young fathers. So everyone sort of chips in. If one person is busy, then, and of course you have, you had the 6 months maternity leave, and then once you go back, and my boss is really, she has her own child, so she's very, very supportive. But right now my kid is big, he's 3 years old. And I mean, of course, this situation is hard because we're all working from home. So it's literally like you're a housewife only because you're working from home. But so work-life balance right now, I'm not having an issue. But before that, it was a bit tough. But I guess you manage, my husband is very, very supportive. And I mean, he does more, he takes a big load of the parenting compared to me. Like, I'm hardly around. So I guess that helps.
Okay, so having a supportive husband is always a great thing, and you've been lucky in that area as well. Take a question from Hanuj Kushal who says, how common is insider trading? In your opinion, does it happen? How often does it happen? Not from the anchoring perspective, but just in general, is this happening in India as a country? Do you think this is happening?
Yes, of course. Insider trading is it's like rampant. It's rampant. Yeah. But SEBI tries to do a lot to kind of curb it, and there are a lot of regulations in place. But I mean, it's rampant. I can say for a fact that I have never ever been a part of it, despite being in the business for so long, and I don't even ever intend to be a part of it. But yeah, it is rampant.
It is rampant. Okay, cool. A couple of people are asking, Gina and Amit asking, which mutual funds are you actually investing in yourself? Are you open to sharing? If you're open to sharing, please do.
No, I'm not actually. I can't recommend mutual funds, but I do have. Vibha, I can't see you anymore.
Flipped over, reading the question. Sorry. Okay.
No, so I can't. But on my page, on my Instagram page. I have done a few sessions with mutual fund experts, and it's a part of my highlights. So you can go there and you can see the top mutual funds that you should invest into for this year.
I have a couple of questions from people about applying for jobs with CNBC. Vins and Rats, they're saying, how do you apply for CNBC jobs? If I have a CFA, can I get a job in CNBC? Someone asked saying, I have a CA, can I still apply to be on your team? So how do people work for you, with you?
So you have to go through the usual route. LinkedIn, they have job applications that are put up, and you go through the HR. Of course, I think now it's become very, very structured. Mm-hmm. People just go through these channels where you have LinkedIn and you have job profiles put up on other pages as well. So that's how you do it, just like any other job.
Okay. Guys, a lot of you asked this question. I think she's answered it quite clearly. Just go to their website and apply. I'll take a question from Aditya Shenoy. Sonia, if you would choose one topic apart from what you're doing now, like what would that be and why? So an alternate career, I guess, is his question.
An alternate career. I don't know. I've never thought of it. I've never done anything apart from this, honestly. Yeah. So
and this is what you always wanted to do.
Yeah, maybe something in fitness, because I like fitness, so maybe that.
Okay.
But nothing apart from that. This is always what I wanted to do.
So you're living your dream, huh? You're living your dream.
I am, yeah.
Okay. So some people are asking about the financials, like in terms of salaries. J.O. was saying, how much does a beginner make in the field of journalism, and what does that trajectory look like? Just is it a lucrative career to be a journalist?
So honestly, let me tell you, since we are being honest here, journalism doesn't pay very well.
Okay.
It doesn't. And it pays really less when you start off. So you have to struggle until you kind of make it. And compared to the work that you do is similar to the work of a business journalism, the work that you do is similar to the work of a CA or CFA, but you don't get paid as much. So, I won't go into numbers, but it's not as a high paying job as many of the other, jobs out there, like investment banking, etc.
Like you're doing investment banking hours, you're doing investment banking work, but you're not getting paid.
Yeah, you don't get paid as much. It's a sort of a known fact. It's a known thing.
It's a known thing. But you do it for the passion of sort of...
yeah, you do it because you love doing what you do, right? If you're doing something for 12 hours a day, you'd rather do what you love. Of course, money matters, and it matters even more in today's day and age because of what's happening around us. But I think, when I started off, it was purely a passion, and then you just build on it, you grow.
Question from Arun. He says, how many years of reporting does it take to become an anchor? Is there a lag between becoming an anchor and doing the reporting? Could you just become an anchor right off?
No, you have to. No. So reporting is different from anchoring. If you're a reporter, you can become an anchor if you're a reporter as well. But a lot of reporters go and report from the ground, right, on the field. So they don't generally anchor as much. But if you're a researcher, then it takes about a year and a half, maybe sometimes 2 years, depending on your potential, before you can become an anchor from a researcher.
An anchor from a researcher. Okay. So is this, someone says, how many years at CNBC did it take for you to finally come on air?
Like I said, I was very lucky. When I joined, there was a senior who had just quit. So I was doing research, but simultaneously there was this empty slot. So I was just pushed in, and I was just made to jump into the deep end and figure it out for myself, So I went immediately on air. But a lot of other people, it takes about 6 months to a year before your potential is recognized, and then they decide which shows to put you on, depending also on the demand supply, depending on how many anchors are available. If there are, like for now, what happened is in the middle, a lot of anchors went on maternity leave together. Mm-hmm. So then there was the slots that opened up for the younger female anchors, But when I just joined, there was just one anchor who sort of quit. So I jumped into that position. So it depends.
Okay, but otherwise also it's about 6 months to a year. It's not a very long gestation period in that sense.
It's not a very long gestation. No, not at all. But depends on your potential and your, I don't know, I guess your ability to catch on,
Of course. Okay. Someone's asking, how was your first on-air experience? Do you remember what it was like?
I remember, of course, I remember very, very well. I was doing a link, they call it a link, like a short snippet on a company called, I don't even remember the name of that company. Sorry. So I think my battery is a bit low. It was a steel company, and I remember that I had no prior experience, no prior practice, nothing. I just went on air and I just blurted whatever I knew, and then I came back and then I started breathing. I lost my breath, but yeah, it was good. I mean, it was way back in the day, 2008. So, yeah.
Okay. Any fun incidents from your career that you remember that you want to share? Anything so that memorable or fun? Someone's asking, like Trading for Fun is asking. Tell us some fun insights from your channel or the career.
Oh, there's so many. I don't know. I mean, what do I say? There was this fun thing that we did like 2 days ago, not 2 days ago, last week, where because we're all working from home, so we got all of us who have kids, we got our children into our newsroom. We made a setup actually where from home, right, where we go live. So we all got our children there, and our children were sitting on the news desk and sort of relaying live, and that was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Oh, that's.
But many fun incidents when markets hit new highs. We've celebrated, and when CNBC TV-18 turned 15 years old, we had this massive celebration, and I mean, there's lots.
Lots of career highs.
Yeah, lots.
Okay. Take a question from Sabahat Hurzuk, who says, did you ever face any problem in your time as a senior and talented, quotes, female journalist? So any sexism in this career, and how do you deal with it?
So this is one thing I tell every single person, that I have never faced any kind of sexual harassment. Is of course a very strong word, but any sexism at all. It may be also because half of our team, I think 80% of our team is filled with women. My bosses are women, my colleagues are women, my subordinates are women. So there's no scope for sexism, and it's purely merit based. Vibha, a lot of people say that, I mean, maybe other professions have these kind of issues, but for us it's purely merit based.
It's purely merit based. Okay. And you really haven't faced any discrimination or sort of?
Never. I've never faced any discrimination ever. Maybe others have, but I think I've been lucky in that sense that my bosses have always been extremely kind and very, very supportive in that sense. So yeah.
So we have a question. Someone asking, who is your boss and how does she help you?
Okay, so I have a few bosses. Yeah. So, I mean, I anchor with one of them, and Lata, she's my boss. So the thing is that everyone's gone through this journey, right? Everyone's had a family, had kids, and so the support comes from there. And the real support is when I felt when I had a baby, because it was so challenging to get back. But they made it happen for me, so that was good.
Okay. I think along the same thread, we have a question from Viral Boradia, who says, is there politics, is there office politics in the television and media space as well? Is it like every other office, or, is there something different going on in your office?
No, it's like every other office. I mean, there is politics everywhere, right? You have to deal with some amount of politics, because there are a lot of insecurities also with this profession. See, the shelf life is very low for an anchor. I mean, after 10 years, there are younger, better looking people who come to the field. Sure. So in that sense, the shelf life is low, right? It's not like say a dentist who can work till 80 and not worry about, having that shelf life issue. So for us, we have a certain 15, 20, maybe 25 years where we can sort of milk it, and that's the case for everyone. So there is some amount of insecurities, a little bit of politics, but I guess it's the same everywhere.
Okay. I mean, it just makes sense, right? You sort of have a life tenure in that career, and then you sort of move on. Okay. Guys, a lot of you are asking questions that she's already covered about how to get jobs at CNBC and what degrees to pursue. We're going to keep this live story on, so if you could just watch it, then I'm sorry, I don't want to repeat questions for a bit of others.
Also, I think my battery is running out, so
your battery's
I don't know how long it may last. Sorry.
Okay. Take a question from Anirban here, who says, how happy are you going back to work? I know that you went back to work this week.
Yes,
how's it been going back, and what's it like?
You know what? It was nice. It was nice going back, but the only issue is that there is so much sanitizing to do. There is so much that you need to be, you need to take so many precautions, social distancing, sanitizing, gloves, mask, washing your hands. And I think the whole day goes in that. So it was tiring. It was exhausting. But it was fun. I mean, I was practically, there were 3 people in the office with me in my team. So yeah, the rest of the team is working from home. But I think it'll take some time because Mumbai is still in the red zone and it's on high alert, and you read these cases. So it was not a very pleasurable experience to go back because of those safety concerns. But otherwise, yeah, office life is great.
Okay. Take a question from Pranay Jain. He says, I'm 22 years old and I'm learning technical analysis. I want to be a day trader. Can you help me with some tips which would help me in my career?
Okay, well, it's great. I mean, he's so young and he knows what he wants to do. That is the biggest thing, right? At 22, we had no clue what we wanted to do. But yeah, so trading, day trading is actually very, very risky. You need a lot of acumen for it. So I suggest you read books. There are plenty of books on trading. I don't remember any of the names at the moment, but you should read books, and don't always keep your stop losses in place, right? Keep a cutoff point. I mean, the stop loss is as important as a target. So I think that is something that you need to sort of keep in mind. Don't get emotional with your trades. Keep a stop loss, cut your losses, because you can make a lot of losses in such a market. The market is very volatile. So yeah.
And you had also mentioned earlier, for technical analyses, of course, just having the CA or the CFA or an MBA or whatever, just having the credentialing and that sort of the core base knowledge is obviously going to be helpful as well. I have a question from Avish Paul, who says, what made you stay so long with CNBC?
Oh, I think I've been lucky to have a great combination of the job that I love, the bosses that I love, and very, very flexible timings. So, I mean, the 2 things that you need: a good boss and an understanding boss, and a passion for the job. I have both. So I think I've given this company not as much as the company has given me, So I think that's what made me stick. There was no reason for me ever to leave so far. So far, so good.
Okay, great. I'll take a question from, is this Just Breathe? Is there scope for minorities like Sikhs in anchoring or journalism? Because we don't see much representation in the media. Is there anything like that? Do you see that?
No, not at all. No, I've never seen it in my 10-11 year career. In fact, one of my close friend is an anchor at another channel, and she is a Sikh. So I'm sure there are no. It's never even considered. Yeah.
Okay, great. I'll take a question from people are asking about your favorite business anchor. So other than, obviously people from your channel, is there someone else that you admire as an anchor?
Yeah, so many. I admire Shireen a lot. I admire Udayan a lot. They're like my mentors. I admire a lot of anchors. I mean, of course, admire a lot of general news anchors as well. Barkha Dutt is my favorite. Rajdeep is my favorite. Rahul Kanwal is my favorite. All of them, the work they do, the dedication that they have, we learn from them every single day. So yeah. But my most favorite is Rajdeep, because he's worked with us in the past and I've dealt with him, and he's amazing. He's a great guy, and of course he gets a lot of criticism as well. I mean, everyone does, but yeah, I like his style.
Okay, question from Kamlesh, who says, do you see the whole sort of China isolation happening, the rest of the world, and then China, and then, sort of manufacturing moving to India? There's all these theories going on. Any opinion on that front?
So India will sort of get an opportunity to, there will be a switch of manufacturing for sure. but the situation is very fluid in my mind. You know, there are a couple of places where the switch is happening. So it's like in places like consumer durables, in chemical companies, you're seeing a lot more export potential for India. But China's bounced back in a big way. I mean, you know, less than 2 months ago, people thought China's story was over, and now they've bounced back in house. So yeah, I do see a lot more potential for India, but India needs to first handle this humanitarian and health crisis, because even if they want to export, now with this whole exodus of migrant workers, it's going to be very hard to get these migrant workers back to the manufacturing units. So, you know, I think India needs to handle that first before deciding whether there is export potential or not. We need to get our house in order.
We need to get our house in order. Absolutely. We'll take a question. So many questions coming through. Okay, let's take a question from Dave Deep, who says, what do you study daily to keep up with all that's happening in the financial world? That's a good question. So what do you read? You know, what are you consuming?
That's a very good question, actually. Thank you for asking. So I read a lot of, there's a structure. So what we do is we go on the BSc and NSC websites. We take a look at all the releases that have come in the previous day, which we haven't covered, say, since 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. in the afternoon. Then we take a look at the global news, which we follow a few websites at the CNBC.com. There's Market Watch. We sort of look at the global markets. The US market is called the mother market, right? So the trends of other markets follow what the US has done. So you get up in the morning, you look at marketwatch.com, you look at CNBC.com, you look at BSc, NSC websites. Then you look at the FII data, which is how much foreign investors have bought and sold in the previous day. So you put all of that data together, and you kind of come to a conclusion as to what trend the market is going to see in that day.
Okay, so there's a whole lot of data.
There's a lot of data, yeah.
Okay. Are you reading any specific news channels, news sites, blogs? Are you consuming data from anywhere else?
From Twitter. I get a lot of my news from Twitter.
Okay.
Of course, a lot of it is unverified also, so you need to do your reference checks. But yeah, Twitter is a preferred portal for me. And yeah, my own website. I mean, CNBC TV-18.com and, you know, Money Control. So I get a lot of the data from there. Yeah.
Okay. Since we're talking about Twitter, just a question on like the whole fad of like citizen journalists. Like all of us are like now on Twitter. We're all on these platforms. We're seeing so much news coming from everywhere. You know, we were speaking about this earlier, about how a lot of us are getting news through WhatsApp, and it's completely unverified news. So how are you guys in the business of journalism dealing with, you know, fake news or news just that sort of spreads rampantly without any verification or source, and people believe this news, you know? So how do you tackle this in the field?
So, you know, I'm glad you brought out that point, because this is a very, very challenging time to be a reporter or a news broadcaster. There is so much fake news out there. So we have to first look at that fake news, verify it, put out a notice saying that this is fake news, don't believe it. So it's really tough world. And so it makes our job a bit more hard. Like earlier, what used to happen is there were four brands. You wake up in the morning, you know, there's a Times, there's an ET, there's a CNBC, you read the papers, you watch the news. This is 4 brands of verified news. Now you wake up in the morning, there's WhatsApp, there's Twitter, there are so many of these websites. Half of them don't even exist. Half of them are just peddling fake news. Sure. So yeah, it is a very, very hard time to be a journalist. I agree with you. But it's a very exciting time also, because there are new portals through which you can access your audience. Earlier, you would just put out the news flow and then that would be it. But now you're answerable to your audience, because they can engage with you. Now, as you can see, we're getting so much feedback on what we're saying. So your every word you say, you are answerable to that. You're right. So I think that makes it a bit more exciting and interesting as well.
So the accountability has gone up now, because you can't just come up and say something and then sign off for the day.
You can't vanish. Because trolls are going to definitely get to you. So you have to make sure whatever you put out is solid factual information. So I do that. I generally avoid putting out, even on Twitter, I avoid putting out any kind of opinion. Because see, when you have like 170,000 followers, you can't, everyone's opinion is there are going to be half the people who don't agree with your opinion. So, instead of the trolling and all of that, all I do is just put out factual information. You can then decide which way you want to cut it or read it.
Okay, guys, a lot of questions are coming through that she's already answered. I'm really sorry, I'm not going to repeat these, but this entire interview will be saved on our Insta stories and will be put out on YouTube as well. And I requested Sonia for 30 minutes. She's been really generous with 50 minutes already.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let her go with maybe one last question. What do you have in store for yourself over the next 10 years? Like, if you had to sort of plan your life ahead and say, this is what I want my life to look like in 2030, what would it be?
My life is what I want it to look like in 2030. It is what it is right now. So,
okay.
Yeah. So I don't have any, I think I've achieved a lot of my goals, whether it's family goals or professional goals. God has been very kind. And I just want to do good work. And at this point, honestly, Vibha, I just want to stay healthy. That's all I want with the whole COVID situation. I want myself, my family, my extended family to be healthy. That's all. I mean, this very moment, that's all that you can wish for.
Okay, so clearly, as Amit is saying, you take one day at a time. And so far, life has panned out very well for you, Sonia, because having known you since over a decade, I'm amazed at your trajectory and so happy, actually.
Thank you. And I must tell everyone who's listening that you are an amazing counselor. I mean, I've known you for so many years, and you do help people reach Ivy eventually. So the guys, I mean, there's so many people who've written to me on my Instagram that they want to know what do we do with our careers, which colleges do we go for. Guys, you need to get in touch with Vibha. Go to her page, sign up for her program, and she's doing amazing work.
Oh, it's so sweet of you, Sonia. I really appreciate that from you. So thank you so much, guys. We're going to let Sonia go, please. So thanks, Sonia. You can exit. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Thank you, Vibha. Bye.
Bye. Thanks so much. Thank you guys for all your questions. It was fabulous interaction. As I said, we've kept the entire recording. It's going to be on my Insta stories on Vibha Kagzi. So please do see the entire research, the entire interview there. We're also going to save this on our YouTube channel. You'll be able to see our entire series of House of Experts. This was episode 6 of House of Experts. All the shows are on YouTube. So if you just Google House of Experts, Reach Ivy, etc., you'll find them. And please let us know if there is a specific speaker or a specific career that you guys are interested in, because I'd be really happy to tap into an expert for you guys and bring them on so that you can learn about another career. A lot of people asked about CAs and CFAs and MBAs, etc. So, if we can reach out to you one-on-one, we'd be very happy to discuss this further. But genuine thanks to all of you for reaching out. And there were so many questions. I'm so sorry if I missed out on any question. But there was just an overwhelming amount of questions. I was just trying to cover as expansive a set as I could without putting her on the spot on anything super personal. So thank you guys, and I'm going to end the Insta Live session right now. But really appreciate. Stay tuned for more events from our end. We have a whole series. Every week we do a House of Experts series. So stay tuned for the next one. Thank you guys. Thanks so much for joining. Udyan, probably not, because we try to do one expert from one domain. So if there is another domain that looking for us to bring someone, we'd be happy to. We're trying to bring one expert from a different field every week, so you can learn about a different field. How did I get her on board for a live event? She's a close friend of mine, and she was just very sweet and very generous with her time. So that's how we managed to get her on. All right. If there are no more questions, I'm going to now sign off and wish everyone a very good night. And stay safe, guys. This thing is pretty bad, so let's not, get carried away and start stepping out of our. Bring Anil Sangvi. Okay, sure. Let me see what we can do. Bring entrepreneurs. Okay, I can bring entrepreneurs. Our first episode was the CEO of Dream 11. I don't know if you guys watched House of Experts #1. It was Dream 11 CEO Harsh Jain, and he really was honest, like Sonia. He gave us the entire lowdown. I can bring you more entrepreneurs. Private equity analyst. Oh, you want someone from private equity? Absolutely, sure. Shyam Vinay, you want tennis? Tennis is a tough one. I don't really know any tennis players personally, but let me see. Okay, so tennis, entrepreneurship, and private equity. Fine, I've noted those guys. I'm going to sign off now. All right. Have a good night and sleep well, guys. Take care.